Alisée de Tonnac. Welcome to the Executive Talk. I
read somewhere
that going into that business, you were thinking of one citation, of one quote.
Yeah.
I think it's from Eleanor Roosevelt, right? Do at least one thing per day that frightens you, that scares you, that challenges you. What was that thing today? I hope it's not that interview.
Oh no, unfortunately I haven't done a scary thing today, but I've got a couple of hours ahead of me. No, to be honest, today I wouldn't be able to tell you what scared me.
But is that really something that drives you? I mean, we will be talking about what pushed you in the business you're doing now, but that thought of always challenging you and doing things that are maybe a little bit uncomfortable, is that something that drives you on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, to the extent that it's very recurring in my day-to-day, because we've added it as one of the values of Seedstars. So we have 8 values that really define our culture, and it's part of our assessment reviews of the teams. It's part of how we give feedback. So they're really present in our business. And one is to stay outside your comfort zone. So it's very, very strong because I believe I have become a better person because of constantly pushing myself and going and staying uncomfortable enough to discover something new about myself, about my surroundings, about the people I interact with. So yeah, it's really fundamental.
That sounds very challenging on one hand, and it sounds kind of tiring as well.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You could have it easier. Let's put it that way. Is it something you crave? Is it something you need?
I think it's something I crave, but I do see kind of a level. It's a bit cyclical, so there are times where I just need to rest and, kind of recuperate. But ultimately, if I find myself too long in a comfortable zone, I'm going to ask myself, my surroundings, my family, my team, okay, what's the next challenge? So there is always this kind of obsession of what's the next challenge for myself, in my family, with my business. But I do realize it's not a constant high of...
You couldn't, right?
No, it's not. Yeah. And I can't, maybe some can, but physically, emotionally, intellectually, I'm not capable.
Others are even less capable, I guess. Did you ever have someone in your team and in kind of your surroundings who didn't get it, and where you had to say, look, this is not how we do things?
Yeah, I think when we defined the values at Seedstars, and it was a couple years back, there was really a sense of it should be specific enough that not everyone likes us.
Okay.
So we had to have enough people that hated us.
That was a deliberate choice.
Exactly. So in that specificity, of course, we've made sometimes the wrong hires, or there are people that have come in with not a very strong sense of this specific value, and it's our job to get them there. And we really ask everyone in every position to take on this value and personalize it to a certain extent, but also perform with it, because we believe that's one of the main ingredients to Seedstars' success.
When we go back to that phrase, to that quote, and how this pushed you in this role, you have often talked about it. You were working at I think at the marketing division of L'Oréal. Yeah. A very good job at a very young age. So you could have had it, very easy there. You were on a career path, and then there was that one moment apparently where everything changed, where you kind of questioned yourself, and where you thought, is this really what I want to do?
Yeah.
What triggered that moment?
In hindsight, I mean, you feel like it's, you remember a couple of moments, but I think it was very progressive. It had been a while that I was very complacent, unhappy. I didn't identify with many of my colleagues or their aspirations. And also I couldn't imagine that I would be kind of, selling lipsticks, and that's it. Not meaning that I was working with unbelievable people, and I learned a lot. A lot of what I am is from that learnings, and also from learning what I didn't want to do. But many moments led me to realize that I had to change my path. Where I'm very lucky, and really I say I'm lucky because most entrepreneurs I meet have reiterated and failed in finding the right team. I kind of first luck was able to find my partners, and 7 years later, I'm still in the same business with the same people. I'm very fortunate of that.
It did take some courage, of course, as well, because yes, you met those business partners. They wanted you on board. They said, "Come on, we want to do this thing together." But I mean, you still had to quit the job. You were traveling around the world almost immediately with at least one of those business partners. You pretty much gave up your life that you had before. How much of a kind of a push did you really need, or was it completely seamless and natural?
No. Nothing was natural. I had, I mean, your stomach is upside down, so it was very tough. Now, when relatively to entrepreneurs I meet in markets where they go against society, family, have huge responsibilities of families. I think I was 24, no responsibilities. I had a family.
Spoiled in a way.
Yeah, spoiled. I had a family that supported me, that were very comfortable with the idea that I could shift lives. So it's actually a really easy decision, and I would push people to take on this challenge, because the reality is what's holding you back. But yeah, as a 24-year-old spoiled kid, it was a very, very big decision. But the moment I took it, it was the best, and one that I never, ever looked back.
But having said that, what you just said, that that kind of role or that situation you were in back then, and the role you're in now, where you actually deal with companies in emerging markets, with startups, with entrepreneurs in countries where this is not as easy as it would be in Switzerland or in France or in Europe. Did that kind of make you more humble in a way, that you say, look, now that I'm looking for investments for little companies in, let's say, Rwanda or in Uganda, those people really have challenges?
Absolutely, yeah. It makes you more, I think, exposing yourself in general to other cultures, to other people, to other mindsets, to other ways of living, humbles you. So I think across many industries and jobs and lifestyle, you can get this exposure. For us on top, we're trying to support entrepreneurs where being an entrepreneur is not the same path as what you could do in Europe. But on top, it was unbelievable to see the level of drive and passion to reinvent industries that they believed as the citizens were running in a way that was unacceptable. So people that are really trying to transform education, healthcare, agriculture, energy, and all this, knowing that you have kind of a foundation which is non-existent. That's extremely humbling, and that drives you even more to do your job better, for sure.
When we talk about your job and also, again, the path that led you to that job, is it a cliche to say that it is almost like a generational thing? I mean, what you just said is kind of what we always hear about your generation. You're around 30. We tend to think they always want a purpose. It's something very important to them. They would rather leave a job than stick to it or stay there just because it pays well. Would you say in that regard, are you kind of a typical representative of that generation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. We are called the millennials, and now there's Generation Z. And I think we studied it a lot because it was also in our way to better understand the entrepreneurs we represented. And a lot of studies show that the millennial generation is not a developed country construct. The reality is most millennials reside in emerging markets. It's a global movement thanks to kind of social media and the fact that we can connect with one another so easily, and the level of information that we're able to gather. So you're seeing this global movement of entrepreneurs that really believe that profit and purpose go hand in hand. And yes, being an entrepreneur becomes a very attractive career path. It doesn't mean that everyone is an entrepreneur, but at least building that kind of entrepreneurial mindset, I think, is fundamental for any business you want to be a part of or that you want to build. So I do believe I speak for a larger community of entrepreneurs like myself. It's true. It's true.
Does that mean you only invest or you only look for younger people, younger entrepreneurs?
No.
I mean, there's something like, let's say, a millennial hype
Yeah.
that, I mean, let's assume, you find a great company with a 60-year-old who's in charge and who does tremendous stuff.
Yeah, we've had, so it has never been age specific, but it's true that by default, because we are, I mean, the average age at Seedstars is probably 27. So we are millennials. By default, you kind of also represent who you are, which is maybe an issue, I think, because we've kind of built a bias. And it's also been built because we are under kind of the startup jargon. And so many great entrepreneurs that are of an older generation,
they're almost excluded, right?
Yeah, they don't fit into this whole startup world, pitching, hipster attitude, whatever it may be, the different trends you see, and that's a pity. But we've definitely had entrepreneurs that were much older, and I think the statistics still prove that most successful entrepreneurs are 40 years and plus, because there's a level of experience and failures that have allowed them to gain enough momentum and experience in what they're doing to be successful. So for me, it's not necessarily a good indicator that we only have millennials, because it probably means we're missing out on the larger pool of entrepreneurs.
When we talk about the millennial generation, and that's something that's always written when people talk and write about you. Of course, you've been on the 30 under 30 on the list of Forbes. You're almost like a poster child, if you want it or not, of that generation. That brings with it as well that you're also asked maybe political questions, questions about the society. Do you see a rift? Do you see a kind of a growing problem with the younger generation, and you can even talk about Generation Greta maybe, not being heard enough and being there, ready for the future, but it's still kind of the older generation having everything in their hands?
It feels like when we have this debate with my father or others from the generation above, that there has always been the clash of generations between those in power and those that future is at stake. It's true that there is a strong sentiment that we play in completely different games, and there are very different rules. And it's worrying because we feel like we have huge responsibility in making sure that we can live cohesively on this planet, because for the moment we have just this planet. And that level of emergency is not felt. And more importantly, I think our generation, I feel like there is a sense of authenticity that we don't see with the political and public institutions.
How about the investors? You deal a lot with investors. Are these investors aware of it? Are there older investors, or are the ones who get it more the younger generation as well?
No, they're definitely the older generation, and they're because we are so strongly focused on emerging market, high impact businesses. Of course, we have a duty to educate and evangelize the larger community of investors, but the ones we collaborate with today, we don't have to explain to them what's going on or what are the opportunities or what's kind of the concept of patient capital and how we have to address these issues and support these entrepreneurs. So we have very well-educated and experienced entrepreneurs that are translated. It can be a high net worth individual, like it can be a very institutional impact fund, or even more and more we're discussing with the development banks. So you can't get more institutional than that.
One word stuck with me when you say evangelize. That almost sounds like you preach to the choir in what you do. Do you often feel that way, that you kind of, you can also say it's almost like a goody two-shoes or something, always doing the good thing? Is that a role that you like to do?
I think there's a level of duty in trying to give sense and clarity on what's out there and what are the opportunities. And because we don't have enough data and success stories to back these investments, it's our job to do that. I don't necessarily like to try and package it because today impact investing is trendy. Tomorrow I don't know what's going to be the terminology, and we don't feel like we suddenly are part of a community because that's the new hype. But the fundamentals are there, and we've got to be part of the education.
And you got to be part of the business, of course, as well. And when we talk about Seedstars, it's very successful. It's active all over the world. You have a team to kind of to coach and to lead. When I listen to you, and when people listen to you, they always have that impression of she's very soft-spoken. She comes across very gentle. It's hard for me to imagine that you can be a tough boss, for example, a tough, hard executive. Can you?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, even though, how can I say that? I don't know if it's the best aspect of me and leadership, but Seedstars was quickly built in a model of partnership. So there's never been kind of a leading force. So it's never, how can I say?
It's not always concentrated on one person.
Yeah, it's always been built in a way that Seedstars had to be bigger than a person.
Okay.
So in that sense, and working kind of in a very Swiss partnership kind of model, it does allow you to not necessarily focus on kind of your personality or how you're driven, but more on kind of the bigger picture and
the
what's
idea,
at stake,
the values you talked
and the
about.
values.
Yeah.
So I'd rather I'd prefer that people embody the values versus they embody a person. So that's always kind of the reflection at Seedstars. Are there limitations to that? Are there times where we will definitely reorganize? We might put a leadership much more structured. For sure, I think we're willing to define what's the most appropriate structure for us to scale. But so far that has helped. But yeah, I can be tough.
You can raise your voice.
Yeah.
On the other hand, and I already hate myself for asking that question, but those are kind of character traits that are often put on women executives.
Yeah.
That she's more understanding, she's maybe more gentle, she's trying to find more the compromise. Yeah. Would you agree, or would you completely push that back and saying that's once again a completely kind of a male question to ask?
I think so I come from an upbringing, and it's true again, very spoiled background where I've never felt like I've been defined as a woman. I've been defined as Alisée, and I'm very comfortable to say that I have more traits that are feminine versus masculine, and I can differentiate myself. But so at Seedstars, we actually have a great kind of diversity in terms of gender, nationalities. We're working hard. And then the more I grew with Seedstars, the more I realized how many biases there was to gender that I was projecting
felt, or that you
also. So typically I used to say things like, man up. Can you imagine? And we've had long discussions with many people around this, that don't build taboos around words, but if you truly believe that your words define your actions, which define your habits, then you should be starting at words. So there has been a conscious decision to work on my lexic, to receive feedback from both sides, where sometimes I would always say guys and girls. Okay. And so I would have some of my women talent come back to me and say, like, I don't like when you call me a girl. Or in a managerial role, when you decide a promotion or who can work on a task, the reality is 90% of my time I'm in emergency mode. So there's you find your way yourself making bad decisions in supporting talent, because it's true. I feel like usually the the men tend to a bit oversell themselves, and this confidence is very reassuring for a manager that needs the job done. Versus many of my women talent that could, in the contrary, really put my trust in them in doubt, because it would be, are you sure? Do I have the competencies? Look at the time.
Themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's my job to know that this person is still the best qualified, and I'll take extra time to reassure them or give them the time or the extra support, because that could be my top performer. And so many things, compensation, men have historically been much more aggressive than women, and so we need to be honest in either balancing out or teaching our managers how to cope with this. So the more I grow, unfortunately, the more I realize, wow, there is huge problems to this. There's huge problems to how you manage family, our talents that want to start families. Yeah. And we're experimenting also ourselves.
Do you see yourself interested in those issues that, who knows, maybe in 20 years' time, we sit here again and I talk to a politician?
So, politics today is not very attractive to me, because I feel like my value, I feel like I have more value added in what I'm doing and in the private sector. That said, as we are supporting businesses and we are reaching a certain scale, it is so tough to not interact with government and policies. And it's so important to have this level of collaboration versus kind of a silo approach, which has its limitations. So I do see the power of government and policies. No, it's not very attractive, but for example, I'm part of the Innovation Council of Switzerland, and that's something that I really hope I can find my place to make, to bring value and have a kind of an impact on it. But it's not easy to roam, to navigate the different political bodies and ambitions.
And your job at the same time. So final question, where do you see yourself in 20, 30, 40 years? Do you even consider that? Or is it something you don't spend 1 minute thinking of?
No, it's true. I do not spend 1 minute thinking of it. Recently, I've tried to do it's hard to pass 6 months, but it's true that I'm very... For example, with the partners recently, we had a discussion, what do we need to sign for the next 10 years? It's true, Seedstars is my life, that it's very difficult to imagine differently. Now I have aspirations of the type of person I want to be, the family I want. We're trying to define with Seedstars, how can we build a very tangible North Star metric that shows the impact of our actions, but everything is possible.
But when we go back to that story of L'Oréal, apparently back then your boss came into the room and told the whole team, who can see being here in 10 years' time, and you were the only one who didn't hold up your hand. If I ask you that question now you would hold up your hand.
True. True.
Alisée de Tonnac, thank you very much.
Thank you.